The only question that matters tonight is simple. Can we see the new Comet C/2025 R2, also called SWAN, after sunset? And the answer, despite all the noise surrounding it, is yes. I've spent the last week analyzing its trajectory, its current brightness, and the geometry relative to the sun. And every piece of data leads me back to the same conclusion. The comet emerges into view roughly 90 minutes after the sun slips below the horizon. No warm-up, no speculation. This is a straightforward observational opportunity, and one we cannot afford to miss. I've watched countless comets over my career, but this one carries a peculiar weight. It was first confirmed in September 2025, traced through the faint ultraviolet glow picked up by the SWAN camera aboard the SOHO spacecraft. The moment I saw the initial detection arc, I knew we were entering a rare season. October 2025 is what I've been calling a comet season. A convergence of geometry, timing, and brightness that only appears a handful of times in a lifetime. And here we are, standing on the edge of that window, with the sky preparing its stage. Its magnitude sits around 6 as of October 22nd, 2025. Magnitude 6 is technically the threshold of human vision under a dark sky. If your surroundings are drenched in city light, forget it. Your eyes will never adapt enough. But under a rural sky or a coastline free from pollution, you might just catch its dim presence. Still, I don't recommend relying on naked vision alone. A simple pair of binoculars, a $25 pair, nothing fancy, will unlock features the eye can't pull from the darkness. The faint condensation at the core, the early stretch of a tail, the ghostly halo that stains the background stars. The reason we must wait 90 minutes after sunset is not poetic, it's geometry. When the sun sinks, its glare lingers along the western sky long after the disk disappears. C/2025 R2 hides near that region, moving away from the blinding cone of scattered sunlight. If you step outside too early, the comet simply drowns in the residual glow. But once that 90-minute threshold passes, the sky reaches the depth needed for the magnitude 6 object to punch through. Think of it like allowing the universe enough quiet to let a faint whisper be heard. Look south. That is the direction the comet chooses tonight. It's a strange shift in behavior compared to earlier in its journey. When it first approached, it was visible only from the southern hemisphere. Australia, South Africa, Chile, places where observers logged the earliest sketches. But now, as of mid-October, it has already passed its closest point to Earth. That phase is behind us. It is brightening at the peak of its curve, delivering its maximum brilliance before inevitably fading as it speeds away from both Earth and Sun. This fading will not be gradual in the human sense. Comets brighten quickly and vanish even quicker. Already, in the time I've studied it this month, the changes are measurable. Small shifts in magnitude that indicate its imminent decline. That is why timing matters. That is why the 90-minute window is not merely a suggestion, it is a requirement carved by physics. Some people have asked why the comet appears so late, why we cannot see it immediately after sunset. The answer is grounded in celestial mechanics. Before now, SWAN sat too close to the sun from our perspective. The sun's halo of scattered light smothered any attempt to detect it. It is only after the comet rounded perihelion, the closest point in its orbit to the sun, that it separated enough from the blinding region to enter our accessible sky. Perihelion acts like a curtain being pulled aside. Only when the curve of its trajectory bends away do we finally see the traveler behind it. This moment is fleeting, but it is genuine. A once in 22,554-year visitor. Yes, the comet's orbital period is that astonishing, offering us a glance before retreating to the far mathematical cold of the outer solar system. If it survives its long wanderings, it will return in the year 24,579. The entire span of human civilization, as we know it, will have transformed by then. Tonight, however, it is here, and that is enough. The reason I keep emphasizing the south is because most people instinctively look west after sunset, assuming the comet must linger somewhere near the place where the sun just disappeared. But that instinct is wrong for C/2025 R2. Its geometry demands we shift our attention toward the southern sky, where it rises into visibility once the twilight fades deep enough. When you face south 90 minutes after sunset, you're aligning yourself with the exact corridor where the comet climbs out of solar glare and into accessible darkness. I'm not interested in mysteries here. I'm interested in precision. And precision tells us that south is the stage, not west. Every evening, as that 90-minute mark approaches, I track how the sky's brightness declines. The human eye is a flawed instrument compared to a camera, sensor, or a telescope mirror, but it has one advantage: adaptability. Once we step out of artificial light and let our pupils open, the sky becomes a layered canvas. In that quiet gradient between twilight and night, the comet begins to emerge. Not dramatic, not triumphant, but patient. You won't see a blazing tail or a theatrical streak. You'll see a faint smudge, one that seems almost embarrassed to exist until your binoculars confirm it isn't a trick of your imagination. What fascinates me most about this visibility window is how it reflects the comet's larger journey. Earlier in October, observers in the southern hemisphere were the only ones with access because SWAN's trajectory favored their vantage. Their sketches and low-resolution photographs were the breadcrumbs that allowed us to refine its orbit. Now the geometry has shifted. Northern observers finally have their chance, but the clock is already ticking. Because the comet passed its closest approach to Earth, its brightness has peaked and will soon begin to collapse. Observing it after sunset isn't just about convenience. It's about catching it before its inevitable dimming makes it irretrievable to casual viewers. And make no mistake, it will dim. Comets brighten dramatically as they swing around the sun, but once they rush past perihelion and their supply of sublimating ice dwindles, their glow fades faster than most people anticipate. This is why I keep telling anyone who will listen, do not wait for a better opportunity later in the season. There won't be one. The physics of dust, gas, and solar radiation have already written the comet's script. We are witnessing the brightest chapter now, and each evening after this one will be ever so slightly fainter. Some have speculated that its late appearance in the northern sky means something unusual must have happened, some mystery in the comet's composition, or an unexpected orbital perturbation. But there is nothing exotic here. The explanation is simple. For weeks, SWAN hugged the sun's glare so tightly that our instruments and our eyes couldn't separate comet from sunlight. Comets often play this hide-and-seek game with us. Their approach paths drag them through the worst place in the sky for visibility, the sun's surrounding haze where even bright objects vanish. Only after they pivot around the sun and widen their angular separation does the opportunity arrive for safe detection. I have often compared this moment to a brief silence in a crowded room. Imagine someone whispering from across the hall. You won't hear them if everyone else is speaking. But if the room quiets, if even for a second, the whisper suddenly becomes distinct. That's what the 90-minute post-sunset window is. A silence, a pause in the noise of scattered sunlight, a chance for a faint object to be heard. When I step outside to observe, I bring only three things: binoculars, a red flashlight to protect my night vision, and the understanding that this comet is older than anything my mind can comfortably grasp. 22,554 years. That number is not merely large, it is humbling. This object began its journey long before written language, long before any human civilization erected monuments. It has traveled through gravitational tides, cosmic dust, and the cold architecture of the solar system to reach this exact moment where human eyes, your eyes, my eyes, can intercept it. And that is why when I look south 90 minutes after sunset, I am not thinking about the mechanics alone. I am thinking about the improbable alignment of cosmic timing, geometry, and human presence. I am thinking about the fact that the comet does not care whether we notice it or not. Yet here it is, and here we are, intersecting for a moment so brief that missing it feels almost irresponsible. Tonight again I'll be out there, because the sky doesn't owe us second chances. The most striking element of this comet's journey is how quickly its visual identity transforms as it pulls away from the sun. In early October, When it was still approaching perihelion, the nucleus was wrapped tightly in a compact glow. The tail was faint, barely formed, almost indistinguishable from instrumental noise in the earliest SWAN camera frames. But after rounding perihelion, everything sharpened. The dust began to stretch, the gas halo breathed outward, and its motion across the sky steadied into the predictable arc we're following now. This post-perihelion clarity is the only reason we can finally talk about seeing it with binoculars after sunset rather than relying entirely on spacecraft imagery. It's the comet's way of stepping out from behind the sun's curtain. But clarity doesn't guarantee permanence. I can already see the signs of departure in the daily brightness measurements. It's subtle, fractions of a magnitude at first, but unmistakable. Comets are fragile travelers. They rise quickly, then dissolve back into obscurity. Sometimes they disintegrate entirely. SWAN hasn't shown signs of fragmentation yet, but the fading is real. When I measure its current magnitude hovering around 6, I understand exactly how thin the margin is. 1 point dimmer, and most casual observers will lose it completely. 2 points, and even binoculars will struggle. Every hour we wait risks pushing the comet beyond reach for the majority of viewers. That's why I keep returning to the same conclusion. Observation after sunset is not just possible, it's essential. This is the window in which its brightness competes successfully against the lingering twilight. 90 minutes after sunset, the sky temperature and light scatter drop to levels where a magnitude 6 object can barely survive. If SWAN were any dimmer, even that window wouldn't exist, but we have it. And I intend to use it every single evening until the comet's declining trajectory denies us the privilege. The real beauty lies in its motion. Each night, SWAN shifts position slightly, an elegant, deliberate drift shaped by gravitational forces that have acted on it for millennia. When I plot its course, the numbers reveal a path carved long before any human telescope existed. It began far beyond the planets, out in the cold Oort cloud where comets sleep in deep time. Something disturbed it, a passing star, a gravitational resonance, an ancient nudge so faint that we cannot trace its source. Yet that nudge set in motion the arc that now carries it across our sky. Tonight it leans south. Tomorrow it will tilt a little higher. The path isn't dramatic. Comets rarely are. Their journeys are silent, persistent, and governed entirely by physics. I have learned to respect that silence. When people ask why SWAN didn't appear earlier in the season, why it seemed absent or hidden, I tell them the truth. It wasn't absent. We simply weren't in the right conditions to perceive it. The sun's glare drowned it out. Its angular separation was too small. It lived in a part of the sky where the intensity gradient of scattered sunlight overwhelms the faintest structures. Only after it swung away from that deadly brightness cone did it step into the possible. Not the guaranteed, just the possible. And possibility is often all astronomy gives us. I think about the first observers who caught it in the southern hemisphere. Their images were grainy but invaluable. They saw what we could not, the early signature of a long-period comet entering its luminous phase. Now that same comet belongs to our sky, but only temporarily. The shift northward is a phase, a moment. Soon it will drift higher, becoming more diffuse, more ephemeral. Eventually it will fade into a glow too thin to distinguish from the cosmic background. It will continue on its orbit, spending centuries in darkness before the next perihelion warms it again, long after every one of us is gone. That sense of scale is what keeps me awake at night. The comet's orbital period, 22,554 years, is not a number we can contextualize in human terms. It is geological, civilization spanning. When SWAN last passed through the inner solar system, humanity had not yet built any permanent cities. When it returns in 24,579, whatever species stands on Earth may not resemble us at all. And yet here we are, sharing this sky with a visitor older than our collective history. A visitor whose appearance is fleeting, whose visibility hangs on the thin thread of timing, patience, and a dark enough horizon. When I step outside tonight, I won't be thinking about cosmological implications or orbital mechanics. Those matter, but not in the moment. What I'll be listening for is the quiet, The same quiet that allows a magnitude 6 comet to whisper through the twilight. The same quiet that lets us momentarily step out of our noise-filled world and meet an object that has traveled tens of thousands of years to greet us. We won't see it again, but we see it now. And that is enough reason to look up. What strikes me every time I analyze the data is how deceptively simple the observational instructions sound. Wait 90 minutes after sunset, look south, and use binoculars. But simplicity does not mean trivial. Behind that instruction lies an intricate balance between the comet's orbital geometry, the scattering properties of the atmosphere, and the slow decline of solar interference. It's a fragile choreography. If the sun set even a few degrees differently relative to the comet's position, or if SWAN were a half magnitude dimmer, the window might not exist at all. Yet here we are, living inside a narrow slice of alignment where everything lines up just enough for us to witness an object that will not return for 22 millennia. Every evening I revisit the sky charts, not because they change dramatically, but because observing a comet is about anticipating what will vanish rather than what will appear. We measure comets on the edge of loss. Their brightness curves tell us how much time we have left, not how much we've gained. SWAN is no exception. Already, as it moves away from the sun and earth, its tail becomes less defined. The dust disperses, the gas halo contracts, the nucleus dims, the peak has passed, and everything after this point is a gentle but irreversible descent into invisibility. This decline is not something we fight, it's something we acknowledge. Comets were never meant to linger. They are reminders that celestial events operate on scales that disregard our schedules and desires. That's why when I step outside with my binoculars, I do so with the awareness that observing SWAN is a privilege shaped by circumstance rather than expectation. I listen for the moment the background stars settle into place, for the instant the twilight crosses that threshold where the comet becomes more than a mathematical prediction. I don't need fanfare, I need silence, darkness, and the willingness to search for something subtle. People often imagine comets as brilliant cosmic beacons, but most of them aren't. SWAN certainly isn't. It requires effort, patience, and the understanding that nature doesn't perform for us. When we finally perceive that soft smear of light, barely distinct from the Milky Way's dimmest edge, we are not witnessing a spectacle. We're witnessing persistence, a body of ice and dust that survived the radiation of the sun, endured gravitational stretching, and now glides away into the abyss, carrying the quiet memory of its ancient path. I think about that path constantly. The distance it has traveled isn't measured in kilometers or astronomical units. It's measured in time. 22,000 years, a span so long that even imagining the world SWAN last saw becomes an exercise in humility. Mangrove forests grew where deserts now stand. Ice sheets sprawled over continents. Entire languages, cultures, and civilizations rose and disappeared without ever knowing the comet existed. And yet SWAN has been moving, silent, patient, unobserved, through the outer boundaries of our solar system, waiting for the moment when the sun's pull would warm its frozen layers and reveal it to us. That revelation is subtle. Comets don't announce themselves. We infer them through faint glows, spectral lines, and orbital plots. The earliest detection through the SWAN camera aboard SOHO was nothing more than a suspicious brightening, a barely noticeable patch in ultraviolet imagery. But that patch became a trajectory. That trajectory became an arc across the southern hemisphere, and now that arc belongs to us, visible in the northern sky, if only briefly. Tonight, when I look south after sunset, I will be thinking about the sequence of events that brought this comet into our field of view, how it hid behind the sun for weeks, shielded by glare so intense that even sensitive instruments struggled to extract it, how it emerged only after perihelion when its path bent just far enough away from solar brightness to offer us a sliver of visibility, how the timing of Earth's rotation, the orientation of our orbit, and the fading twilight converge to create the 90-minute window I keep talking about. None of this is random. It is physics. it is geometry, it is inevitability shaped into beauty. And as I watch SWAN retreat from its moment of maximum brilliance, I'm reminded that comets offer us more than scientific data. They offer perspective. They remind us that life unfolds against a backdrop of cosmic time, where even the brightest moments are transient. They remind us that rarity is not meant to be owned, only witnessed. And they remind us that our role is not to hold on, but to look up while the window is open. Because the window will close, the comet will fade, and long after it has vanished from our sky, the memory of seeking it, of standing in that quiet southern darkness, waiting for the universe to reveal something fragile and ancient, will remain. What I know now, after all these nights of watching the comet soften into the horizon, is that the real significance of C/2025 R2 isn't its brightness, its trajectory, or even its rarity. It's the invitation it offers. A fleeting doorway into a universe that is always there, but rarely acknowledged. We live surrounded by noise, digital noise, social noise, emotional noise, and yet the cosmos continues moving with a steadiness that doesn't care about our distractions. The comet's appearance after sunset is a reminder that quiet wonders exist just beyond the glow of our screens, and that 90 minutes of patience can reveal a world most people forget to look for. Tonight, standing outside once more, I won't be searching for perfection. I know the comet is dimmer now, its nucleus is smaller, its tail less defined. The magnitude has slipped past its peak, and the brightness curve is descending just as the models predicted. But the decline doesn't lessen the experience. In some ways, it sharpens it. There's a strange beauty in observing something that is already slipping away, something that asks you to reach for it even as it fades. It teaches you not to expect permanence, only presence. I find myself thinking not of SWAN's long journey ahead, but of the one it has already completed. It has crossed unimaginable distances. It has survived radiation storms, gravitational stretching, ancient collisions of dust and ice. It has circled the outer dark for millennia. And after all of that, it revealed itself to us for a fraction of its existence. We are not the destination. We are the bystanders who happen to be standing in the right place at the right time. And that to me is far more humbling than imagining the comet as a messenger. People often assume that celestial events exist to impress us. They don't. They exist because the laws of nature operate with or without our attention. The universe performs no favors, grants no preferential treatment. SWAN isn't brightening for our convenience and isn't dimming as a farewell gesture. It is simply following the mechanics carved into its orbit long before humanity learned how to think, much less observe. But even if the comet doesn't care whether we see it, I care that we can. I care that someone, somewhere, will step outside tonight, look toward the southern sky 90 minutes after sunset, raise a pair of binoculars, and catch a faint, whispering glow. And in that moment they will feel, maybe for the first time, how small, how temporary, and yet how fortunate we are to live on a planet where the sky keeps offering gifts like this. Tomorrow, SWAN will be dimmer. The next day, dimmer still. Soon the comet will cross the threshold where the human eye, even aided by binoculars, will no longer be able to grasp it. It will return to the deep quiet of space, carrying its dust and ice toward realms we will never reach. The next time it visits, the Earth will be a different world. Humanity, if it endures, will not remember this moment, unless someone writes it down, speaks it out loud, or passes it along. So this is my contribution, a reminder that you are witnessing something your ancestors never saw and your descendants will never see. A reminder that the simple act of stepping outside and looking south after sunset connects you to a traveler older than your entire civilization. And a reminder that rare things do not need to be spectacular to be meaningful. Tonight, I'll raise my binoculars one more time. I'll watch the dim glow drift across the sky, fading but still present. And I'll let the silence carry the weight of the moment. Because this is the last time we see C/2025 R2, not in our lifetime, ever. And knowing that makes every second worth it.